Hi guys, so today we'll be having our Zoom discussion on sexual harassment and assault. I'm joined here today with a few volunteers and also a health professional. So we can probably start with our introduction. So I'm Tanya, and I'm a volunteer from CreateZim. And we also have with us Bianca.
Hi guys, my name is Bianca. I'm also a volunteer from CreateZim.
Hello. Hi, my name is Prince. I'm a volunteer from CreateZim.
We also have with us our professional as well, Clement, who's joining us for this discussion. So we just wanted to start off by obviously discussing kind of what assault or harassment can be. So I thought I would just give a definition of what it is. So sexual assault is any sexual act that a person did not consent to or was forced into against their will. It is a form of sexual violence and includes rape. And assault or sexual other offences, such as groping, forcing physique, child abuse. So with that, so already, it kind of covers a lot of things about sexual assault. So today, I think what we'll be making about is to discuss sort of the coping mechanisms of sexual harassment. I know that we're all kind of based in different countries, so there's probably different services that are provided. So I just been thrown out was, do you guys have any sort of ideas that you think of how someone can possibly cope with sexual assault or harassment if they've experienced it?
I think the first thing would be talking to someone about it.
Yes.
Be it a friend or finding professionals who know how to deal with sexual assault.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with you. I think it can sometimes be a difficult thing. As saying previously, because it's like a personal experience, it can be quite hard to maybe reach out to someone if someone else hasn't maybe experienced it. I think that can be quite difficult. But I think it's one of these things, finding someone that you can really trust in, who can help you to just kind of maybe open up something that you're comfortable speaking to, because it can be quite a difficult thing. Prince, do you have anything at all? No, it's fine. Clement, is it okay if we could get sort of a point of view from yourself of maybe any coping mechanisms for anyone that may experience sexual assault or harassment?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Tanya, and thanks for sharing and bringing this important topic onto the fore. So I think I would want to start with the experiences that people go through when they face sexual assault kind of configures how people cope. So it's so dehumanizing, it's traumatic, it's something that is marred with a lot of myths and misunderstandings. So most of the people tend to blame themselves when they go through this, and that affects their coping mechanisms. Instead of people opening up, like what has been highlighted, they will not do that because they are ashamed of themselves. They are taking in guilty feelings of things that are not actually supposed to be, a blame on them. So most of the people who hate from within, they will be stressed about it. They are not going to open up. They are going to isolate. They are going to indulge in self-damaging behaviors. Actually, research shows that most of the victims of gender-based violence or sexual violation, they actually go on and have suicidal ideations. So they can even try to take away their lives, and they are also thinking that there's nothing to live for. If this could happen to me, why should I face tomorrow again? Then the other thing that is also complicating coping mechanisms is the issue that they have lost trust. So I hear the last speaker say the first thing is to open up to other people and say this has happened. But the person who is supposed to open up to other people is somebody who has lost trust with the humans. They think the world out there is just out to hate people. So they would rather keep it to themselves, isolate, and then self-exclude. But what should be the proper way of handling this problem is actually the number one point is to recognize that I am just a victim. accept and apportion the blame where it deserves. You don't deserve to be raped. You don't deserve to be violated. So it's not your problem. And when people accept that it's not their problem, they can seek help then. So the seeking of help is a product of understanding of what the problem actually is. And when they have sought help, they need to seek help from people who are less judgmental. So part of the coping mechanism is on the response of the people who we approach when we have gone through this. You know, other people have gone on to commit suicide after opening up because of the reactions of the people whom they opened up to. So you also need to know your support structures so that you open up to people who are going to help you actually. Then going forward, you also need to start to manage the other symptoms of sexual violation. The depression needs to be managed, stress, and the major problem there is post-traumatic stress disorder. And we have specific interventions for all those things. And even physical harm needs to be managed, because when you keep it, you are constantly reminded of what really transpired. So I think to start with, that's what I can share for.
Well, thank you, Clement. That's such an amazing perspective to hear. And I think from what you've said, I'd just like to say it's so important as well what you said, that sometimes with the victim, they can blame themselves. And I think it's such an important thing that as a victim, you're not the one to blame. You should never say that, because I think I've watched some things before on documentaries of people that have experienced sexual assault or rape or anything. And they have said, like, you know, they see themselves at the forefront of it happening and that is their fault. And I think that's why it's one of the biggest things that us as the support system around people is to make them know that it's not your fault. It's the perpetrator, not yourself, and that you've not brought anything like that onto yourself, because no one would ever want something like that. So I think that's such an amazing point to make. Does anyone have anything to add or share from what Clement has actually just shared with us?
Yeah, I think it's very important to have discussions like these, because most of the time people end up blaming themselves because of what society says about rape. A lot of the times people say someone was raped because of what they were wearing or who they were hanging out with or because they were drunk. But none of that gives permission to someone to sexually assault them. I feel like even if someone is walking down the street naked, it doesn't give another person permission to assault them. So I think we need to change our language as a society about how we speak about sexual assault. Because if someone is assaulted, then they'll start to think, if I tell someone, they're gonna blame me because of what I was wearing or because I was drunk. So yeah, that goes to what Clement was saying about people being afraid of opening up because they're worried about how others will react. So yeah, I think it's also, that is a breaking point, because before victims even seek therapy or help from professionals, most of the time they start by speaking with someone close to them. So that can be a breaking point, whether you're going to lead someone to actually getting help or them going back to shutting down and processing everything by themselves. So we need to be trustworthy people who provide support without any judgment when someone opens up to us.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think especially recently, there's been a lot of media coverage on, especially Twitter, especially here in the United Kingdom. Like, people have been speaking a lot about it and speaking out about their own experiences with sexual assault or harassment. And I think another thing that is very important is that it's actually possible for men as well. Like, I think a lot of people sometimes don't realize that sexual assault can happen to men as well, because it tends to be very much spoken about with women, which it does happen, of course. But sometimes the little things that some men have experienced, they don't realize that that's also sexual assault. So I think that's another thing that has to be really raised as well, so that people know in the awareness that, you know, sexual assault happens to men and both women. Yeah, that's one thing I really think. There's been a lot of coverage about it recently. I don't know if you guys have seen anything online about a lot of people speaking out, but yeah.
Yeah,
Anyone?
I think people should stop making jokes about men being sexually assaulted, because then if someone is assaulted, they'll probably have a hard time opening up, because they know that people will make fun of them. They'll say they're not manly enough because they were assaulted.
Yeah, I agree. Anyone else? Prince or Clement?
Yeah, I want to talk about the reaching out part. You
Yeah.
know, it's really hard for these people that to say when you've been assaulted, then you have to decide to say, okay, who exactly can I reach out to? Can I reach out to this person and that person? I don't know. What would you guys suggest to a person who's been in the situation and is trying to reach out but doesn't know which person, what kind of person to trust exactly or to start with? Perhaps if you can talk about that.
Yeah, that's a really good point to raise. Has anyone got anything to share?
Yeah, if I may come in from a professional point of view, I would say the first port of call should be the professional line, because these are people who are already trained to handle these things. And they are trained also to explore your support system and help you to open up to the other people. So if I was going to face a sexual assault case, the first port of call would be the professionals, the helplines. Even when you want to start with an anonymous type of reporting and opening up, the professionals are already trained to do that. Because other people would have experienced rape, they would rather have their identity, hidden until such a time when they have recollected and they can now trust the people around them, then they can be exposed. So to be exposed too early is also dangerous, but professionals can help handle this. Then when it comes to what people have in terms of resources around them, that is also another line where we need to invest more, because other people won't know where to open up or who to talk to, because they don't know what resources are available around them. Let's take, for example, a student who is in the diaspora and they have gone through this and they don't know where to call for help, and home is far. And the other dynamic that we need also to consider in this is 78% of the sexual violation cases are actually perpetrated by close people to you. Yeah. So you want to open up, but the people whom you were supposed to open up to are the people who have violated your friends, your parents, your siblings. The people you hang out with are the people who have violated you. That's another dynamic that complicates the opening up and the help-seeking behavior. And when we consider the idea we are bringing in about men opening up, I think it's a question of society and how we have been schooled to understand the sexuality of men and the complexity of it now for society to sink in, that how does a person who functions in that way get raped? Like people think that there is autonomy and agency on the part of the human male body to engage in sexual act. You can't be violated without will. But people forget that consent and cooperation are two different things. Yeah. So you can cooperate under threat, and then people, misinterpret that to consent. Most of the victims of rape are then accused by law that but you were cooperating. Yes, I was cooperating, but I was not consenting. I was afraid of myself. Most of the rape victims are cooperative because they are afraid of the West. And the West in any sexual violation is death. That if I don't cooperate, this person will eventually kill me. If they can do this to me, then they can actually take away my life. So people cooperate. And then the perpetrator interpret cooperation to consent. And that's most of the line of defense under law. But then the person who has cooperated out of fear and out of the danger situation they were in are hurt more, and then they are sidelined worse by the processes of trying to find justice.
Wow, thank you, Clement. That's literally answered it all. I think what you said there is a really good point, that the first person to go to is the professional, because like you said, they're trained in it. I was also thinking, as you're saying it, I feel sometimes like what you're saying, sometimes it can be the person closest to you that maybe has done something to you. I think sometimes speaking to someone that you don't know, so there's a lot of services. I'm not sure what services we have, if you guys know any that are in Zimbabwe, but there's some that you can call, like you said, anonymously and just speak to someone, because I feel sometimes when you don't have a connection to someone that you don't know them, it can sometimes be a bit easier for certain people to speak, because this person doesn't know you. You're just speaking from ground zero, if that makes sense. And then you can say what you want from there. So I sometimes feel like literally using professionals or charity services that, you know, are tailored to people that have experienced that, it can be sometimes the first point of call if there's someone that has been close to you that has done it. I don't know if you guys know of any services that they have in Zimbabwe where people can actually get in contact and, you know, speak to anyone.
I know the Friendship Bench connects people with therapists, so that can be a starting point.
I had a look online and I saw, sorry, please go, Clement.
Yeah, so for sexual harassment and gender-based violence and rape in particular, there is the adult rape clinic. It also have a call in line. I think you can search online for the exact details. And like what has been highlighted, the Friendship Bench can link you up. And because this is a crime scene, the legal entities are also a starting point. So the police and law society or organizations can be first point entries for help. Then we also have our Msasa project for women, and we have Padare Rume for the guys. They can also report through that. Then Phoebe Zimbabwe, they also have a support system where they can link you to service and provide some low-level counseling services when you have gone through such trauma. Then all health care centers have drop-in zones for people who have experienced that, because either way, gender-based violence and sexual violation is a public health matter, and it is addressed through the health and social care systems. About how responsive the systems are is another story for another day, but I think to reach out might be the starting point, and it's taken up from there. Yeah.
Great, thank you, Clement. Does anyone have anything else they wanted us to maybe talk over before we end our discussion, or any other points or facts you wanted to place in? That's fine. Well, I think what we can.
So, Tanya, I would want to round up by saying people can appear to be well even after that, as a way of trying to cope. And there are other people in their pseudo wellness, like they will try to cover up. And society also have a tendency of trying to make sure that if the perpetrator was a close relative, maybe a breadwinner, they have put in measures to try and protect that cadre. But what we should also watch out for in support of our friends, when people suddenly move into binge drinking, bulimia in terms of eating disorders, sudden abuse of substances, isolating themselves and segregating themselves from others, you know, not with the trust issues, and people who are talking about suicidality, but they are not opening clearly about the matter. It is our role as peers to try and follow up and try and encourage the person to seek help and open up, because most of the cases for sexual violation go unreported because of that. So that's one thing that I would encourage the panel and other listeners, that we are each other's keeper. Let's watch out for the deterioration in behavior and the signs of post-traumatic stress disorders, and even lacerations that you cannot explain. How it is that you have these bruises that you have never talked about? It might be a starting point where you help a colleague who has gone through sexual violation or rape, for example. So let's watch out for that in our colleagues, and let's help them to open up. Professional services are available, and some even available online. And through CreateZim, I think we have linked up with occupational therapists, with psychologists, with social workers, psychiatrists, and people like that. So the organization should also take a lead on checking up on each other and referring them to appropriate services.
Wow,
Yeah,
yes.
those are some good points. And
Yeah.
also, we should create safe spaces and normalize discussing about sexual assault and rape with our friends, families, with any people we encounter on a day-to-day basis. And earlier on, Clement mentioned, you were talking about consent. I think that should be a conversation that we have like on a regular basis, because sexual assault ranges from, it's a range from like just being touched inappropriately to rape. So when your friends are making jokes about touching someone without their consent, you should check them and tell them that what they're doing is wrong.
Definitely. Yeah, I agree. I think it's an education thing, especially. And I think that's why it's amazing that this week we're speaking about sexual assault and harassment, because it can be a thing where you can actually educate people that may not know this is what they're doing, and some people that may not even know that it's happened to them. And just to raise awareness that there are professionals, there are services that you can go to, and just even to encourage people that, you know, like we said in the beginning, that you're not the problem, you're the victim. So you should be able to create a safe space around people to be able to tell them what's happened. And I think that's why, especially with the organization of CreateZim, there's many of us here that we're happy to, you know, speak to people and just be there for them. Like you said, Clement, that we are each other's keepers. And I think that's why you can message people on CreateZim, even message the page if you're going for anything. The professionals, like you said, we've got occupational therapists just to seek help and to seek advice as well. So I think that's a really amazing point to have made as well. It's amazing. Has anyone else got any questions or anything else they'd like to share?
Oh yes, I just wanted to emphasize on what we do at CreateZim. You can simply use us as a starting point. Like if you're going through anything, we can help you from like just after it happened until when you get like legal aid or whatever. We're here to do what we can. Yeah. Otherwise, we all have to be each brother's keepers, is it?
Exactly that, definitely. Well, that's amazing. I'm going to end our discussion now, but I want to thank you all for joining us and for everyone that's been watching. And like we said, there's been many services and cares that we've got that you can seek out to. But thank you all for joining us, and that will be the end of our discussion.